Yeah, well, graduated in 2020, so the first year in the bedroom, yes, and then second year was well, kids still graduated. The first year, they dropped me. Yeah, so hopefully I graduate. Or by and then I don't. How about you? I heard you're getting married. Yeah, right. Where's your wedding? Yeah. So it's gonna be we have like a lot of friends here. So we looked at it from board and it just wasn't working out. They didn't have a big daughter care. Right. So it's like the one venue is like you can have 25 doctors, but then it's great. Like my one friend
get to the Garden or you find out that the French taxi driver is like, good luck.
We're going to Paris actually. Oh, really? In September. So we're going to be going there. Have you already booked your
Young man. Paris, how are you?
We're flying to Paris for the
Hi everyone, just want to let you know we're just going to get started in about 5 minutes. Okay, so if you need to top up a drink for the toast afterwards, now's the time to do it.
So what? Yeah. So you might have been able to get like Airbnb.
Just sort of separate out your stuff. And then I gave mine. Yeah, okay, so you can get rid of yours then. I just need this so I can. Yeah, I think so. I don't know. Well, I think it's open. It's open. Just don't grab mine, okay? Oh, here's the top.
And then we think there's about 55 people, so at the end of it, tell everybody about the 2 hour house, because not everybody will go.
Yeah.
Invite everybody.
Yeah.
And don't forget to thank everybody for all the donations and flowers and things.
Yes.
Wright.
Okay. Yeah. For anybody that's standing, there are a few more chairs being added, or you can stand. Standing room only. It's fine by us. Right in it. Sure. Okay. Not used to speaking with the mic, so feels like it's right in the face here. So thank you all for coming. We're all here to remember 2 lives well lived. But first, we're going to go over a little bit of the last few days of Mom and Dad, just for anybody that wasn't aware. They both passed relatively quickly, and they didn't suffer for long, which is what they really wanted. But we'll just kind of go through a little bit of the history. So just a couple weeks ago, April 23rd, I'd taken Mom out to Costco and Superstore in the morning. Yes. Mom had her routine, and she knew where to get what she wanted for the price that she wanted to pay for it. She's always looking for bargains. She trundled along with her walker through both the stores. As a matter of fact, she sent me off to find some cookies for her, and then she came and found me because the cookies were on the bottom shelf, kind of below my eye level, but we finally found them. Later that day, though, we got a call from the nurse at the home they were at that Mom had fallen. We talked to the nurse, she'd taken all the vitals, and we talked to Mom, and everything seemed fine. She said, no, don't come out, I'm fine. She had bad knees, and so she might have even just slipped off the couch and just couldn't get herself back up and apparently missed dinner, and that's when they checked on her. But we said we'd call her first thing in the morning the next day. Well, we did, and unfortunately, Mom could barely put 2 words together. She obviously, something had happened overnight. So Kelly and I knew that, you know, things had changed, and we rushed out there. When we got out there, and you know, Mom knew we were there. She could understand us, but she could only do like 1-word sentences. You know, yes, no, okay, that kind of thing. So we said, Mom, we're going to call an ambulance, and you're going to go to the hospital. And she just said, no. She did not want to go to the hospital. But we called the ambulance, and they came and checked her, and they confirmed that yes, there was some sort of stroke-like event must have happened. And when the cute EMT said, Mrs. Wright, you're going to go to the hospital, then she said, okay. The hospital was great. They got her into emerge right away, and within a few hours they had done all the testing to confirm that yes, Mom had had a stroke. But despite that, she was able to communicate with us, and she did understand what we were saying to her for the most part. Once she was moved up to Unit 72 at Foothills Hospital there, she seemed to be comfortable. Bruce was there alone with her, and she had either another stroke or a seizure or something, and things kind of took a turn downwards. So we started preparing for the worst. But then she seemed to brighten up a little. She recognizing us, Katie and Alex who were in town, Bruce and Sophie and Emma, Pat and Terry. They'd all come to visit her, and she seemed to recognize everybody, and even though she couldn't communicate, she could, you know, through her eyes and through her gestures, kind of get across that she knew we were there.
And she had a few words.
She had a few words.
Yeah, a few more.
Yeah. But our hope was short-lived, unfortunately. She began slipping again. We got the call on May 1st in the evening that she had slipped down considerably. So Bruce, Kelly, and I took turns staying at her bedside. Kelly and I spent the night. Bruce spent the next day with her because we, you know, between dealing with kids for Bruce, because he had to go home and make sure they were all off to school, and we both had appointments the next day. But somebody was with her pretty much her entire last day. The hospital was great. They moved her into originally she was in a 4-bedroom, and it was quite noisy. And but they did move her into a semi-private room, and they blocked off the other bed as we prepared to potentially stay more nights with her. I think that, though, I think she could sense that she was in a quieter place, and with her family by her side, she just quietly slipped away from us. Sorry. I think Dad was calling her, as he'd always say to her, "No more time for a cup of tea, it's time to go." You know, I know there's many complaints about the healthcare system, but we have nothing but praise for Foothills Hospital, the emergency room, and Unit 72 staff. On Dad's passing, as many of you know, he had an ongoing battle with skin cancer. There was a time that after one of his treatments, he ended up with a large S-shaped scar on his head. Of course, he didn't have any hair to cover it up. He would joke that Mom had branded him so he couldn't wander off. But near the end, he developed a growth behind his ear, and it gradually began to affect his speech and his facial features.
And his eyesight.
And his eyesight. Yeah. He made a decision on his own that his time had come. He got placed in hospice so he could pass comfortably and they could help deal with any pain that he was dealing with. When we last saw him, though, he was still in there. He could understand. He knew who was there, but he waved us all off. He didn't want anybody there to see him in that condition. The good thing was, though, that they were both, the weekend before they passed or they went into hospital, we had had a family dinner where we were all together for one last meal. And everybody in the family got a chance to express their love for them. So that's how the last few days went. But let's go back in time a little bit and just talk a little bit of history. I'll talk about Dad, Bruce will talk about Mom. So Dad was raised here in Calgary by Walter and May Wright. Dad grew up in the Mission area, not far from here, and he attended Western Canada High School. After school, he entered Mount Royal College's Petroleum Engineering Transfer Program that led him to Oklahoma University, where he completed his degree in a BSc in Petroleum Engineering. Upon his degree, Dad began working with Chevron Canada, and over his 20 years with Chevron, Dad worked in many places in Western Canada, including Virden, Manitoba, Edmonton, and Red Deer and Calgary, to name a few. It was while working in Edmonton, Dad met Mom. After Chevron, Dad joined the Bank of Montreal as Vice President Oil and Gas. He traveled the world in that capacity, including the US, the UK, Japan, Australia, and several other locations around the globe.
Had to do one trip around.
Yeah, there was one trip he did. He went all the way around the world. I think he went Calgary, Toronto, London, Moscow, Tokyo, Australia, New Zealand, Vancouver, Calgary. They lost his luggage from Vancouver to Calgary.
And the silly part was, the credit card he had for his job couldn't cover it. He had to use a competitor's credit card.
Yeah, they didn't give him a big enough limit for that long. When Dad left the bank in the early 1980s, he and his partners formed R-Cube Resources, where they invested in several oil and gas interests throughout Western Canada, primarily in Alberta. And he continued to go into the office every day up until the last 2 years of his life. Bruce?
Hi. So again, thank you everyone for coming to this for us. Mom and Dad never wanted to be the center of attention. They always enjoyed being with friends and family though. So, thank you. Words fail me at the best of times, so please forgive me if some things don't make sense. Mom and I were talking just a few weeks ago about how I got that from her. Anyways, Mom was raised in Bigger, Saskatchewan by William and Hilda Brownlee, and she attended Bigger High School. After high school, she attended college in Moose Jaw, where she became a laboratory tech. Upon completion of her training, Mom moved to and worked in Edmonton, Alberta. She first met Dad at a dance in Sylvan Lake, Alberta, and then later when Dad transferred to Edmonton, he called her up for a date she was the only person he knew who lived in Edmonton. And wasn't it that trip is where Mom didn't have her ID with her?
I think that was at Sylvan Lake.
At Sylvan Lake, yeah, she didn't have her ID with her. And Uncle Bob, who was an RCMP up in Rocky Mountain House, had to drive down from Rocky Mountain House to Sylvan and say, yes, she's old enough to go into the bar. So thank you, Uncle Bob, as well, for helping Mom get in and meet Dad. Anyways, yeah, Dad called her for a date. They were married in Bigger, Saskatchewan on May 25th, 1957, and enjoyed 64 years together.
May 25th.
Mom moved with Dad to various oil and gas centers throughout Western Canada before ultimately settling down in Calgary in 1964 with the three of us, Gordy, Doug, and I.
Yeah, right here.
No, okay.
Can you do it?
Yeah. Thanks. Now, I was born in Red Deer. These two were, Doug and Gordy were in Edmonton. Now,
But I claim to be a native Calgarian because I wasn't in Edmonton long enough to know anything about it.
yes. Now, Mom returned to work once Doug and I were old enough. And first as an assistant at the local veterinary clinic. I don't remember that, but
Yep.
that's good.
Yep.
Why didn't we have more pets?
I was allergic.
Well,
My fault.
yeah, it was your fault, that's right. Okay. Then I'm still allergic. But then she returned to her career as a lab tech in Calgary, at Calgary Medical Labs. Once Doug and I were old enough to be left home alone, she also traveled a lot with Dad for business and pleasure to the United States, Europe, Australia, and to name a few. Mom was also an avid artist and always attending one sort of art class or another, and a passion she shared with her granddaughter Katie and my kids as well, Sarah or Emma and Sophie. But she also enjoyed sewing, especially Halloween costumes for the grandkids. Throughout their 64-year plus marriage, Mom and Dad enjoyed traveling the world together. Dad enjoyed golfing at the country club, as well as participating in many oilman golf tournaments and many golfing vacations. When we were younger, he enjoyed helping out with our minor hockey. Mom and Dad adored the grandchildren and spending time with them. Later in life, they both became avid golfers. Again, that was sort of the history. Now, these are just a whole list of sort of memories and thoughts and a bit random. Oh. Oh, Emma. You want to go back to Mommy? Okay.
She's fine.
Yeah. Now, Mom and Dad were never ones for hard conversations that I remember at any age, at least with me. I don't know what they do to Doug, but you know, the difficult ones, whether there's a disagreement or think that I was doing something wrong or should change, or they were always supportive though. At the same time, Mom and Dad had a hard time expressing positive things too. Mama always got me these wonderful birthday and Christmas cards that said so many things that she just couldn't say direct. You know what, Pat? Yeah. Words weren't always there. I am that way myself, very much like Mom. Although I prefer to give funny birthday cards that match the sense of humor as I understand the different people for their birthdays. Now, probably a lot of you know, but a number of you may not know, but there were three of us originally. Gord was the oldest, but died from leukemia. He died when I was 6. For years, just mentioning his name brought Mom to tears. Me too. But when Mom and Dad moved from Lakeview to Discovery Ridge, Mom was cleaning out the house and she found these sheets of crayon drawings from Gord to me. I still have them.
But can you find them?
Not right now. They are buried in storage.
Yes.
No. Anyways, this started a conversation Mom and I could always have for decades. Thankfully. But yeah, it's just still words would fail us. Now, on to something different is that Mom was actually the biggest hockey fan of all of us. She made...
What team? The Flames.
Yeah.
A hard team to be a fan of.
Yeah. She made to a lot of the games as kids. And although I remember one specific one when she wasn't the most exciting game for her to show up for, because she walked around the corner just as I got hit with a stick in the eye. And she had to take me to the hospital to get stitches. Not exactly the best game, but I remember, just got us there, things got done. But yes, she was the one that had the Flames tickets in the family. She bought them. And she finally gave up on having the tickets because she had a hard time getting any of the others of us to use them because we were just so frustrated with the Flames. And Cam's going, well, of course, it's the Flames. You should have been cheering for Edmonton, right? Yeah, he just shakes his head, yeah. But Mom was the one that had them and shared them. But they just got so darn expensive to be wasted. Now, another interesting fact, and Doug got correct me, I guess it was, you said the Crawfords in Australia, had to remind you, is that Mom was the only one of us to have a hole-in-one on the golf course with Dad. And actually, she had a second one in Australia as well. And no, Dad, no, we never had a hole-in-one. Mom, yep, and she said, oh, I'm not very good. Yeah, well, Mom, you got the hole-in-one, so. Now, this is one's a little harder. Is that Mom, in the last few years, was hard for her. She was very, always enjoyed time with Doug and Kelly's kids, much younger, and now, the last few years, she always wanted to visit my kids. She loved the grandkids. It's just, she's always worried about, oh, I don't want to be a burden, like I can't pick them up, I can't help them, I can't do this. Mom, just come over and read, or just come here for a few minutes. Yeah, because she loved you very much. And so we get her over, and sometimes I got her over to her house as well. And the one thing that she always had for the kids were mini Kit Kats. She'd walk in the door, and she always had little mini Kit Kats for these rascals. And that would get all of them running, except Sarah. She can't quite run yet. Now, sometimes, when she came, she did do some art and crafts with the kids a little bit, at least. And even went so far, one time the kids expressed an interest in knitting. So she went out, and this was just in the last 6 months, she went out and found some little, kid-sized knitting needles, and got the yarn and got everything, and started showing them how to do it, because the kids were interested in learning it. Now, another thing is that Mom loved her gardening. Yes. And now, she would come over to our place to help clean up or repot plants or whatever was my flower beds. And she would be out there for an hour just wanting, oh no, I can clean this up, or these need to be trimmed, or this one needs to be fixed. Just for an hour or two a week, because that's what she loved doing. And she got really tired at it. I had a little cart for her so we could at least sit a little bit. And there's times we'd sit back and I just say, well, I've got these plants, but I want to plant them here. And she said, no, don't put them there. You should put them there. Mix them with this. So let her sort of direct me at least, try to supervise a bit. Things like whatever, extra fertilizer or whatever. This is something she'd loved all her life, even from back at the farm.
Yeah, Grandma and Granddad Wright's farm.
Yeah. You know, so someplace we went all the time, every week. Now, another thing is, one thing Mom really, really missed at the residence she was at is having an oven and a stove. Like,
Yes.
yeah, she really missed that. She loved to bake cookies, and so when she wanted to do, you know, she wanted to do it when these kids, when they were younger, were at school, or when Eric was not around, because she was always worried that the kids were gonna come up to the stove when it was hot, and she just couldn't move fast enough to stop them. But she'd always been making cookies. And then she finally figured out how to do it in her microwave too. Not quite the same from her point, but hey, she finally got it to work right, to her satisfaction. Yeah, I just, drippy noise, noise. But she always had more cookies. Now, the other thing is, of course, whenever we had a special dinner and Mom was coming over for Christmas or birthdays, we couldn't keep Mom out of the kitchen, could we? Mom wouldn't stay out of the kitchen. She wanted to help and try, you know, get her to at least, you know, she could supervise. Always entitled to supervise and always have a few words of wisdom for us. Admittedly, I'm mostly useless in the kitchen, so.
I'm gonna miss her gravy.
You're gonna miss her gravy, yeah. But yeah, you couldn't keep her out of the kitchen. Now, another thing that a lot of you, anyone that ever visited their house, especially in Discovery Woods, she had the crystal all over the dining room. Yeah. And that actually started in '81, the collecting of that. And that was just picked up a little piece from, I think it was Vienna, on a high school band trip.
Yeah, that would have been your trip.
That was my trip. Just a little ball that said Vienna. And it's kind of exploded from that. That's the company was making all these beautiful figurines and things like that. So that became the birthday gift and Christmas gift of choice for Mom. Now,
Made life easy for us.
well, she made, yeah, exactly. She made life easy for us because she'd go to Duran's or Costco and she'd see the latest ones and she'd buy them. Just immediately. She bought them. And she had these drawers in the one room full of all these gifts and said, oh, well, you know, for my birthday, I just go take it to see which one you like out in the drawer. That was how, for years, that was her birthday gift and Christmas gift. Because she said, no, I've got them already. Just go pick one you want to give me. But that's how her crystal collection built up. Like to say it was us, like I'll take credit for starting it, but she probably would have found it anyways. But she's the one that kept it going because she loved it. And I think now some of the grandkids have some particular ones, and if not, I have ones. If you have favorites, I still have it all.
Well, that's good. Dad said they're locked away in the storage closet.
Yeah, they're locked away in storage.
Yeah.
Yes.
Next time.
Anyways, that covers that. Now, different direction. I'm going to talk about Dad for a minute. I know you were going to talk about Dad, but I had a few more comments about Dad. Is that most of you know this, but Dad was never one to swear. And when we were, especially when we were growing up, and one day I was totally stunned. We were doing something in the basement, some woodwork and that, and I heard. I went, yeah, exactly. Like, Dad? And he'd hit his thumb with a hammer. And I said, where did that come from? And he was like, you don't swear. He just said, you're old enough now. You know.
The same thing happened occasionally on the golf course too.
Okay. I didn't see that so much, but of course, now, not that I remember getting angry that much, but there was one time he got so angry at me, he was screaming at me. And I was like, what? You know why? It was actually at a hockey game. I was refereeing and I missed a call. And as a referee, and he was just giving me grief over that. And I went, what the heck? Where did that come from, Dad? Now, as you know, Dad always liked to work with woods. There's lots of cabinets and things that he loved to build, including their dining room table from their old house.
We still have it.
They still have it, that's right. And I admit, there's something therapeutic about working with wood. I love it. When everything else is frustrating, just something about the cutting of the wood, the smell of the cut wood, the whatever. And, you know, even after Dad got where it wasn't really working with wood that too much, I would, if I was working on something, I'd have him come over just to supervise and get his feedback and his comments if I couldn't figure out how to do something, or just spend time. Actually, I still have, like, there's a cabinet that I had built for displaying some of the crystal. I still have that. We had it in our living room for a long time. Yep. And the crib, yes. I still have parts of that. There's a couple pieces missing right now. Now, they're around, yes, they're somewhere. They're probably in storage. Now, when it came to business, Dad, it came to anything, really. Dad wasn't one to get even. I mean, he wasn't working well, but there was I remember years ago that there's something that happened with R Cubed and the Tencos, where the big guy that wasn't eligible for anything managed to win. And something that kind of bothered Dad for years. And then one day, he came upon something that he thought was, yeah, Dave, you probably remember, of course, or came upon something in the paper, and he sent me to go look in the law library. And I found something, not what he was thinking of, but found something else. It ended up him being able to go back to these guys and say, excuse me, but you know what? This isn't right. Now, yeah, as I said, Dad wasn't one for getting even. Like, he just wanted, you know what? That's it. We're not paying you another dime. He didn't want to get money back. He wasn't. And the company asked, well, you know, can we not talk about that with anybody, any of the other guys that were involved back then? And Dad was like, oops, I had consulted with them already, so sorry. Whatever they did with it, they did. And so maybe he got even a little bit, but it wasn't his style. Now, I'll try to finish this up, but the last few years of golfing, I didn't get out too much, but the times I did go out were with Dad and his buddy, Doug Morrison. Doug, his eyesight wasn't so great, but awesome golfer if he knew the line. And I went out with him because I was the one with him that would go and, if the ball ended up in a trap, well, somebody had to get it out. And so I would go with him to dig the ball out of the golf trap because neither one of them could walk that well. And so I wasn't going to make them go into the trap to get their ball. And it was just a good time with both of them, you know. I think the last trip, flying trip, that Mom and Dad ever took was when they came to my wedding in Veradero, Cuba. They hadn't been even then they weren't doing a lot of traveling, but they came down, they did that trip for the wedding. And I remember, you know, in Cuba you see all these things about all the old American classic cars, and they're always highlighted in different shows and that. Well, in reality, there's not that many of them there anymore. And there's a lot of Chinese cars and that, but we rented one, got some pictures taken, but the outside looked immaculate and beautiful, but the inside door handles were missing, and this was missing. And Dad and I would talk about that, just kind of chuckle about it on that trip. Now, this last bit is just on the last couple days for Mom and Dad as well at the hospitals. After Mom had recovered a bit in the hospital, I remember when I came in and she looked up at me and she had her glasses on and she smiled and was so happy. And of course it made me think of my little one, Sarah in the back, that some of you, a lot of you have never met, but my little one back there. And it just reminds me of how Sarah looks up at me when I come home and go to hold her. Just that beautiful smile. And Sarah's the only one, these munchkins, that has blue eyes. like Mom. And I took these girls to see Mom as well in the last few days. So they had a chance as well. Now, I also remember Dad managed to give these two, because at the time there's only Sophie and Emma. Took them to the hospital, Margarita, and we went to the hospital to see Dad. And the girls crawled up on the bed with him, and he managed to give them both a big hug. You know, yeah, that was on my birthday that year. Anyways, thanks.
Thank you. So, some of the stories that Mom and Dad told us, and some of the memories I have. I can remember one story Mom would always tell about hitchhiking home to Bigger from Moose Jaw, because she couldn't find a ride home. She wanted to go home. I don't know if it was a celebration going on or something, but she wanted to be in Bigger. Well, her big brothers, Bill and Bob, were so mad at Mom that for taking such a risk. I think one of them insisted on driving her back to Moose Jaw. Not sure if she got to attend whatever she was going back to Bigger for. I remember Dad's story about going to school in Oklahoma, dishwashing at a sorority to help pay for school, thinking it was probably a great way to meet girls. Unfortunately for Dad, he didn't belong to a fraternity, and the sorority girls only wanted frat boys. All the better for Mom, though. As Bruce mentioned, Mom and Dad first met in Sylvan Lake at a dance where Uncle Bob had to verify Mom's ID. Good thing, too. And then later, when Mom was transferred to Edmonton, he called her up. Or when Dad was transferred, he called her up because it was the only phone number he had in Edmonton. Very, very fortuitous for all of us. We've mentioned gardening. Mom, I think, helped our kids understand where veggies come from. When Kelly and I moved to the acreage, we set up a large garden area for Mom. Both Mom and Dad would be at me starting as soon as the snow was gone, about this time of year, to get the garden rototilled so they could start planting.
But not before the May long weekend.
Right.
That was Dad.
But the rototilling had to be done
Yeah, that's right.
ahead of time. As soon as the frost was out of the ground, they were at me to do it.
They planted potatoes and carrots and beets before May 24th
Yeah.
because they went in from seed.
Yeah. You know, Mom put thousands of miles on her car coming down to Okotoks. I don't know how many days a week. She was down there on the weekends. She was probably down there on weekdays when we were at work. She put thousands of miles on her car just coming down there to do her gardening. And it wasn't just the veggie garden. It was the front gardens. It was anywhere that needed plants tended to. But then there came the war with the moles. Mom had an ongoing war with the moles. She even hired a professional exterminator to get rid of the moles. He didn't have much luck. We really didn't have much luck on dealing with the moles till one year Katie brought home a dog from a friend to look after, Tia, as a puppy. I think it was actually, she came home the weekend that we had Mom and Dad's 55th wedding anniversary party out at our place. We weren't too happy about having this new puppy.
Mom was livid.
In there. But you know what? In the end, the pup that Katie was looking after for a while is still with us 12 years later. She's now become Alex's dog. Katie has her own puppy, Mako, who I think is part kangaroo based on how it can jump. Anyways, Tia turned out to be a very good mole hunter. And the other two dogs we had at the time wanted nothing to do with it. But Tia would dig holes and go after those moles like crazy.
Grandma would like point and be like, mole, and Tia would dig up the mole.
What I remember most about Dad, he's always there to lend a hand. You know, helping to coach Bruce's hockey team, mainly as the team's manager and statistician, helping to arrange when they went on hockey trips to set up
Fundraising.
to get fundraising and all of that. He was in there. He kept stats on all the players and arranged for trophies at the end of the season for like most assists, most penalties, most goals. you name it. I think one guy won all 3.
No.
Cam might remember, but Meisner, what was his name?
It wasn't me.
It wasn't me. Dad taught me the value of hard work. Between doing chores at the farm, Grandma and Granddad Wright's farm, we'd go down there, and when we got tall enough, it was always a great joy to drive the ride-on mower. It was like driving a car,
It was
right?
a fight.
It was a fight. We had to argue over who got to cut the grass. Very rare these days. But he also, you know, we chipped in building a garage on the Lougheed place. I remember expanding the garage down at the farm to give more storage for Grandma and Granddad Wright, and helping me develop a basement when we got our first house, or first new built house out in Valley Ridge. Yeah. Mom, on the other hand, was always the hostess. Whenever family and friends came through, she would be quick to put on a spread. She was the glue that kept the family in contact with each other. As a matter of fact, during the, you know, and she was a willing hostess. During the Olympics that were here in Calgary, I got a bunch of tickets from work, and one of them was, I think,
a lot too.
yeah. But one of them was for bobsledding and ski jumping. So Kelly, I think, had to work, so I took Bruce to it. We went to watch the bobsledding, and you know, it looks great on TV, but if you're standing there, it's like, zoom, and then 5 minutes of waiting, and zoom, 5 minutes of waiting. So then we went over to find a good place to sit in the ski jumping.
We didn't sit.
Yeah,
There was
we
no
did.
place to sit.
No. We went over there to find a place to sit in the ski jumping, and Mom and Dad had their relatives from Liverpool, Rob and Kath, over. When they arrived, they were talking about this character, Eddie the Eagle. He was the British ski jumper champion. So we walk in, and it was pretty empty still, because it hadn't started yet. And there was somebody sitting there with a British flag. So we thought, well, let's go sit with them and cheer for Eddie, because we didn't know one ski jumper from another. Well, it turned out it was Eddie's parents and his sister. So we didn't think twice. We thought, okay, they're over here from England, you know, stuck in, I think they were out in some small hotel someplace. Eddie, of course, was in with the things. But
The Athletes Village.
The Athletes Village. But we asked if they'd like to come over for a nice home-cooked meal. And if Eddie would like to come over. So we got through all the necessary to get Eddie out of the village and to go pick up his parents, and came over to our place, and a good time was had by all. As a matter of fact, Eddie's dad and Mom's cousin Kath, I think, were matching shot for shot all night.
And the funny part was Eddie, who was so used to the press chasing him and asking him all the questions, didn't get a chance to say a word.
Yeah.
He got to be silent. Although the press did come to the house, and we said, go away.
Yeah. I think they came to the house a few days later when Eddie's fame kind of caught up.
Yeah.
No,
No, they were
that
there
night.
that night too,
Yeah.
didn't they?
Yeah.
Anyways.
Mom was a great, as Bruce mentioned, was a great sewer and almost a seamstress. Our kids always had great Halloween costumes. We had Sailor Moon for the girls and Darth Vader one year. We had, another year, we had Minnie Mouse and a couple of Barneys. As a matter of fact, we couldn't get the Barney costume off of Stephanie for most of the next year. Later on, Mom made several riding outfits for what was then Stephanie's budding equestrian career, saving us time and money, of course, which was always a big thing for Mom and Dad, to save time and money. Dad unknowingly influenced my career at an early age. While I was in university, he got me started doing oil and gas evaluations on paper. You know, everything we do on spreadsheets and Excel and now in fancy software, doing it on paper. Hand calculating everything all the way across and upside down, left to right, all of that. He helped me, he had helped found the Calgary chapter of what they call Society of Petroleum Evaluation Engineers. And later on, I think he gave me a good understanding of oil and gas economics, and then I think he was proud when I became also a member of the SPEE. Through that organization, I got to see how much he was respected by his peers. As everyone in the room, I think, knows, Mom and Dad had a passion for golf. One way that was shared with the family is when they had the timeshare condo with their friends up at Radium. we would always spend many a vacation, especially when we had 3 young kids, because a 2.5, 3-hour drive was about all our kids could handle at that time. And that's about all we could handle with kids in the car. You know, we spent a lot of vacations out there. You know, many a time it would be Mom and Dad, Kim would join us, and we would venture up and down the valley, playing all the different golf courses throughout the Columbia Valley. It got Alex into golf at a very early age.
Kinda.
Yeah, when we, the condo was on the 15th hole of the old Radium golf course, and Alex would be sitting there waiting. He would know about how long it would take us to get to that 15th hole, and he'd come running down to join us for the last few holes. Unfortunately, Alex didn't understand at that early age that the goal was to take as few strokes as possible. All he knew at that age was that as soon as the ball went in the cup, that was it for that hole, and he had to wait.
I remember he was more.
Yeah.
He was a hockey stick.
Yeah. Although there was one time, Dad and I took him out. We played the full 18. And we got paired up with this Japanese couple. And on the 3rd hole was quite an elevated hole. It was a relatively short par 4. And Alex walks up, throws his tee in the ground, throws his ball in the tee, whack, just about gets it to the green. And the little Japanese tourists are going, "Whoa, Tiger Woods, Tiger Woods." Yeah. Dad always helped organize not only family golf tournaments at many reunions, but also the annual Oilman's tournament, and then later on the senior Oilman's tournaments. They both Mom and Dad got a lot of enjoyment out of it, and although like I said earlier, the golf course was the only place I ever heard Dad swear. I think it was trying to chip out of a sand trap, and it kind of kept coming back in. Later on, I had the privilege to attend several SPW conferences where Mom and Dad proudly presented me as a 2nd-generation member of that organization. They had many international friends that they had made through that organization. The last conference they attended was in 2019, and actually it's about the last conference SPWE had pre-COVID, and I got to turn the tables on them because by that time, many of the members were of my generation, and I got to introduce Mom and Dad as elder statesmen of the SPWE. Because a lot of their generation were no longer attending because they, travel, insurance, all that fun stuff. The COVID years pared back the family dinners a bit, but we still found a way to get together once the initial lockdown subsided. Early on, Mom had said that if they tried to lock her in her room, she and Dad would just go down to their car and go wherever they please. Not at first, but eventually, yes, they did. Just said, fine, we're just going out to go shopping, to come over for dinner, to do whatever we want. It was getting tough on them. Well, that's about all I've got for now. As I mentioned earlier, we've got a couple, we've got a couple tablets here. And rather than have an open mic, we thought if people want to record some video memories, and then we'll figure out a way to kind of distribute that after the fact on it.
And like the Leyden site has a link as well to upload audio, so we'll put some of them there.
Yeah. Mom and Dad were greatly loved and will be dearly missed by all who knew them. Mom always said that if we have a service for them, that we should raise a glass in honor of their 2 lives well lived. So please, if you will all join us, here's to Mom and Dad and 2 lives well lived. So now there's some snacks in the back. Of course, there's more wine, whiskey, and port if you want some more. Also, for anybody that's interested, we're going to have a little gathering back at our condo that you're more than welcome to come to. It's going to, what is it, beef on a bun, chicken on a bun, some salads, and just another chance to get along and mingle. So just grab the kids or Kelly or I. We can give you the address, and there's free parking. So yeah, downtown, right? Most expensive parking in North America. But please join us if you can. I know many of you have either had to return home or have other commitments, but everyone is certainly welcome to come on over. So thank you for coming.
to that, so I
Yep.
don't go into
Well, I'm
it.
gonna cheat. I'm gonna ask her next time too. We got some chuckles. We got